Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam.
Ali, how are you doing?
Good. Alhamdulillah.
Inshallah. Ali, you remember what you were supposed to be discussing last week? This week at least?
I think we're going to discuss about the story of Prophet Ibrahim.
Ibrahim alayhi salam, right?
Yeah, right.
Inshallah. Looks like everyone is a bit delayed, so we'll just start off, inshallah. And maybe next time we'll just make a quick summary.
Okay.
Inshallah. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين. So, I think previously we mentioned that Ibrahim alayhi salam is one of the names of Ibrahim alayhi salam is Abu al-Anbiya, right? That he's the father of the prophets, even though he is not the first human being. So technically, a person, if you thought about it, Adam alayhi salam should have been called the father of the prophets, or even Nuh alayhi salam, because after him, basically, humanity restarted, or human beings restarted. But instead, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it such that Ibrahim alayhi salam is the one that is called Abu al-Anbiya, the father of the Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam. And it has own reasons for making sense, because think about it. Out of the children of Ibrahim alayhi salam, both of them were Nabis, Ishaq and Ismail. And Ishaq alayhi salam was the forefather to all the Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam that came after him within the Bani Israel. And there was thousands of them. On the other hand, Ismail alayhi salam was the forefather of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, who was the last prophet to come, the last Nabi to come on the face of the earth. And that is why it is, and also Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, you can say he is a father to, in today's time, three of the greatest religions, which is Islam, which is Haqq, and then after that, Christianity and Judaism. In reality, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about in the Quran, and because this Jewish people used to claim that Ibrahim alayhi salam was a Jewish person, was Jewish, and the Christians would claim that Ibrahim was Christian. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ما كان إبراهيم يهوديا ولا نصرانيا ولكن كان حنيفا مسلما. That this Ibrahim alayhi salam, he wasn't a Jewish person, nor was he a Christian person as you guys claim. But rather, Ibrahim alayhi salam was a pure Muslim. That means he was completely obedient to the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's what a Muslim is, a person who is completely subservient to the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so Ibrahim alayhi salam is one of those Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about different parts of his life in different places in the Quran. It's all scattered. And whenever the relative topic comes out, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought his story. So today, when we'll be touching on it, inshallah, we'll be talking about it in a more of a order of his life rather than the way that it comes in the Quran. So just a bit of background who Ibrahim alayhi salam was. Ibrahim alayhi salam was said to be the son of Tariq. His father's name was said to be Tariq. And who was the son of Ibn Nahur and Ibn Saruq, Ibn Raghu, Ibn Baligh, Ibn Ahir, Ibn Shalih, Ibn carries on for a while, all the way to Nuh alayhi salam. Because obviously, as we said, from after Nuh alayhi salam, basically humankind's restarted. And everything restarted once again. So Ibrahim alayhi salam was amongst the great grandchildren of Nuh alayhi salam. Now, Tariq, who was Ibrahim alayhi salam's father, he had children at a very late age, right? And three of his children, whose name was Ibrahim, Nahur, and Haran. So there were three brothers, Ibrahim, Nahur, and Haran. And just happened that Ibrahim alayhi salam was the middle son, And his older brother, who's known as Nahur, had a son, right, whose name was Lut. son. And that's why last week when we talked about Lut alayhi salam, we said that Lut alayhi salam was a nephew of Ibrahim alayhi salam. So basically, Lut alayhi salam was the son of the older brother of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Anyways, this whole family, they resided in a place called Babylon, which is close to where today's Iraq, Iran approximately is. So that's where, or even close to Egypt, around that area, that's where Babylon was. And over there, within Babylon, there was three groups of people. One group of people were the people who worshiped the planets, stars, sun, and moon. And then you had a second group of people who would worship the idols. And you had a third group of people who worshiped their own kings, the kings of that time. So these are three groups of people, but they're all interrelated to each other. So the people that worship the stars, they would also worship the so-called idol gods once in a while. And they would also have a lot of respect for the kings. So they had interrelation amongst themselves, understanding amongst themselves. And subhanAllah, Ibrahim alayhi salam was born into such a society. And society which was full of false gods, which was full of king worship, which was full of godlessness and Allahlessness, as I would say. So, and subhanAllah, not only was Ibrahim alayhi salam born in this atmosphere, but he was born to a father who was regarded as a priest among the idol worshippers. So imagine, you are born into a family where your father happens to be an idol worshipper, and not only any idol worshipper, but rather he was a priest among the idol worshippers. According to some people, this is just for our knowledge, is that Ibrahim alayhi salam's actual father's name was Azar. It was actually Azar. And Azar, his actual father, had passed away at a very early age. And thereafter, sorry, my mistake, that Ibrahim alayhi salam's actual father, which was Tariq, had actually passed away. And thus, he lived with his uncle Azar. And this is relatable because in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ لِأَبِيهِ آزَرَ. And when Ibrahim alayhi salam said to his father, Azar. And that is why most people understand that because Ibrahim alayhi salam grew up under the guardianship of his uncle, that's why he used to call his uncle his father. And so this is the beginning of the life of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And every single day he wakes up, he sees people worshipping idols, etc. But Ibrahim alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given him intelligence. Ibrahim alayhi salam, from a very young age, he started thinking. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about in the Quran, and he says, indeed we bestowed aforetime on Ibrahim his guidance. That means, وَتِلْكَ حُجَّتُنَا آتَيْنَاهَا إِبْرَاهِيمَ عَلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ نَرْفَعُ دَرَجَاتٍ مَّن نَشَاءُ. That we granted these signs to Ibrahim alayhi salam, because of which he just understood. And already at a very young age, one day he asked his father or his uncle, Azar, we just call him the father, that he asked him about what he was making, that, you know what are these weird looking things that you're making? So his father replied that these are the statues of gods, that these are statues I'm making, then we're going to worship them. So Ibrahim alayhi salam, at this young age, he was probably around 4 or 5 years old at this time, he was astonished. And he couldn't make sense of it, that you are making it, but you are going to worship it, right? Doesn't make sense that something that you make yourself, that means it's weaker than you. That means you have to put your strength in to make it. And now you're going to worship it and ask for your needs from that thing. So now Ibrahim alayhi salam, being a small child, he was 5 years old. Now what he used to do, sometimes his father would make these idols and he used to leave them in a place, and Ibrahim alayhi salam would play. He was a child, so he would take one of them and start riding on them like it was a horse and jumping around. And so his father came one day and saw that Ibrahim alayhi salam was doing such a thing, that Ibrahim alayhi salam was on top of one of the idols and he was running around with it like it was a horse, like a play horse. And the name of this idol was supposed to be Mardukh, who was supposed to be a very respectable idol according to them. And so his father became furious. He's like, what are you doing? And he told his son, never ever do this again, that I don't want you ever riding on top of these idols. So Ibrahim alayhi salam couldn't couldn't understand that, Father, why can't I play this? This idol looks very funny. And that idol at that time, the one he was playing with, happened to have big ears, and that's why he was actually playing with it, because he had place to put his hands and hold it and pretend like it's a horse. So his father said that this is the god Mardukh, and his big ears show how deep his knowledge is. And again, Ibrahim alayhi salam just looked dumbfounded at his father and couldn't make sense that how is that possible? And it's related that at this time, Ibrahim alayhi salam was approximately 7 years old. And slowly, as Ibrahim alayhi salam grew up, in the beginning, he found all these to be extremely funny and it was a joke. But as he grew up, he started hating the idols because he realized that this makes no sense. It just shows people's stupidity, that they're not using their brains and intelligence to understand what they're supposed to be understanding. So, and he noticed small things like, these idols don't drink, and people bring food and drink and present it to them and worship them. And as soon, and these idols have a massive temple, and there's thousands of idols, and each idol for a different thing. And right in the middle, there was a massive idol, which was supposed to be the big idol and the powerful God. And when people would enter this temple, all of a sudden their form, like they would change their attitude. Outside, they're all haughty and arrogant. And as soon as they would enter a temple, they would become very, submissive and start praying and crying as if these idols could do something. And this made no sense to him. And so Ibrahim alayhi salam, as he grew up, one night, he decided to take a walk. And so he left his house and he went into the mountains. And over there in the mountains, he found an open space, a flat surface on top of a mountain. And he sat there and he looked into the heavens. And he started thinking, you know what? Subhanallah, these things look so amazing and great. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches in the Quran that we as Muslims and believers in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should actually take the time out and look at the different creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ponder over the creation and look into it and think about how amazing these things are. That is why there's nothing wrong in reading about how amazing different creations are. For example, the human body, or maybe the galaxy and the whole solar system. There's nothing wrong as long as we read it with the objective that we are supposed to be opening our mind to that the broadness of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, thus expounding our understanding of the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So anyways, Ibrahim alayhi salam sat over there and looked into the heavens and thought to himself, man, this heavens, subhanallah. And as he sat there, he noticed the stars twinkling. And he said, now imagine this is Ibrahim alayhi salam, is still a youngster. And he looks into the heavens and he says, you know what? Maybe that is God, that small twinkling thing. And after a while, he sees that a moon appears. And the moon, as the moon comes and is shining really bright, and all of a sudden that star disappears completely. And so he says, no, inni la uhibbul afilin. No, I don't like these disappearing things. No, it doesn't make sense to me, right? If it can be overpowered by something else, the light of one thing can overpower the light of that thing, then that means it doesn't make sense. That can't be God. So maybe this moon is the God. Maybe that is the greatest being because it looks so big and powerful. Then he thought for a while, and it's still the nighttime, but then he thought about the sun. And he thought, maybe the sun is the most powerful being. But then he thought, you know what? But the sun also disappears when the cloud comes, or sometimes when it becomes a night and the sun disappears. It's not possible that anything that disappears, that appears and disappears, and is overpowered by other things, because of which it is caused to lose its own light and radiance. That can't be God. No, God has to be that being who's ever there and whose radiance and power is always there for us to see at all times. And he doesn't change due to circumstances. Remember, anything that changes due to circumstance shows that he is forced to take on a different form because of circumstance, and thus that cannot be God. So then anyways, he leaves the top of the mountain. He goes back and says that فلما رأى الشمس بازغة قال هذا ربي هذا أكبر فلما أفل قال يا قوم إني بريء مما تشركون. He comes back to his nation. And now the first thing he tries to go and talk to those people who worship stars and suns and moons. He tries to reason with them. You know what? Why do you guys worship these stars? And he tells them about his observations that he had when he was on top of the mountain. He says, you know what? It doesn't make sense to me that I should be worshiping something that is comes to an end or loses radiance or changes according to circumstance. But the people just couldn't understand. They said, no, these stars are actually gods in the heavens, and the sun and moon are actually different gods in different forms. Ibrahim alayhi salam says, Inni bari'um mimma tushrikun. You know what? I'm just going to say that, I'm free from whatever you guys ascribe partners onto this. The actual God, who is the greatest, who has power over everything, who's the creator of everything. I cannot agree with you in the stance that you take that all these things are actually partners of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إني وجهت وجهي للذي فطر السماوات والأرض حنيفا وما أنا من المشركين. He says that indeed I have turned my attention towards the creator of the heavens and earth. Hanifan, completely turning my attention away from anything else. And so this was Ibrahim alayhi salam trying to reason with the people who worship the heavens and earth. And subhanAllah, thousands of years later, we can see that the people who study astronomy and astrology and all the different sciences of the heavens and the skies understand that, subhanAllah, the system that is taking place in the heavens and the earth can only be a creation of a greater being. Every single day, thousands of planets are coming out, subhanAllah. If you read on the on what scientists see in the heavens, they see that there's a point in the galaxy where they see every day that different suns are coming out as if they're being formed from a open from this there's a factory manufacturing suns. And after a while, all these suns just die out. After thousands and thousands of years or millions of years, there are suns that are completely becoming extinguished and turn into black holes where they suck in so much energy. And subhanAllah, there's immense amount of energy over there. And who can only be the creator of such complex ideas that things are burning out and exploding. And in the midst of all this, there's one sun around which there's all these planets rotating around. And one of the planets is the Earth, and the Earth has its moon, and which you're perfectly calculating our days and nights. It only makes sense that there's a one powerful being controlling all this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had to have a partner, then that this entire world would be in turmoil. Because imagine if there was two gods, one of the two gods would disagree with the other god. It cannot be that they're in perfect harmony in every decision that they make, that it's supposed to be day now and the both of them agree it'll be day now and both of them will be night, or that both of them agree that the sun should rise right now, or that the earthquake should take place right now. Rather, they may disagree, and as soon as there's a disagreement, one has to win for the system to carry on, and whoever wins has to be the God. The other cannot be God because he has given up his position as being the all-powerful, and immediately he loses the position of God. Na'udhu. This only makes sense to a person who is intellect. So anyways, Ibrahim alayhi salam tries to reason with those people who would worship the sun and the moon, and those people were not ready to understand. And so in today's time, a person may ask that these are stories, but how does it relate to me and you? And I'll stop over here today, inshallah, Ali, even though it's a very short part of it. Inshallah, we'll continue next week when we have, inshallah, more of the audience are present. That in today's time, we have people who still study the sun and the moon and the stars, and who are part of the fraternity called the scientists, or a subcategory of them, as the astronomers or the astrologists. And these people, there's a major part of them who happen to be, subhanallah, people who do not believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who are atheists. And it is amazing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enables or has given them the ability to see so much of his power, but yet they reject the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And somehow they come to this conclusion that there cannot be one God. It is amazing that these people who are supposed to be so intelligent that they're able to build crafts and they're able to build such machines which can travel into such deep space, yet they cannot come to this simple fact that there's only one God, and that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or rather, there's even a God who's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because without a higher power, it is impossible for any such thing to run in such perfection. And so from this, we come to know that truly at the end of the day, intelligence is not what gives guidance. Intelligence is not what gives guidance. Because for all these people to understand all these intricate matters in the heavens have to be intelligent, so to say. So what we come to understand that intelligence is not what gives guidance, but rather Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides. And there are some times when a person will see the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the knowledge and those things which will point out to the greatness of Allah right in front of their eyes. But in spite of that, they will be closed off from recognizing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or rather, they will recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in spite of that, because of their own dislike for the truth. And they're not able to let go of their ego. They will not accept it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about it in the Quran. in Surah Bayyinah, لم يكن الذين كفروا من أهل الكتاب المشركين منفكين حتى تأتيهم البينة رسول من الله يتلو صحفا مطهرة. And these people, لم يكن الذين, those people who disbelieved, those people who mushrikeen, they did not disbelieve, did not separate themselves from the belief in God until what happened when proofs came to them. And when the proofs came to them and they decide to reject it, that's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, no, now you're out. Because before that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as long as they believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in spite of them believing in all these idols, gave them the benefit of the doubt that, you know what, it's possibly maybe you made a mistake. But once the messenger came and pointed the signs out to them, you know what, you see this every single day. How can you still not make sense of it? And then when these people still rejected the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala completely turned them away and said, you know what, you are no more of the misguided ones. So may Allah subhanahu, we have to constantly make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not misguide us in spite of all these signs. Because there are many people who may be so-called more intelligent than us, but yet they're not Muslims. Let's think about it. You know, the Indians around the world are running the show in terms of technology around the world. Whether you talk about Google, whether you talk about different companies, where a lot of the main people who are putting the hard work in are all Indians. And that's because they have the brains and they're the ones that are hired. And the same way you have, subhanAllah, the Caucasians, and I'm not being racist in any way, but they seem to be ruling many parts of the world. Whether it's America, the presidents are of the Caucasian race, or you talk about England, etc., etc. But yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in spite of having this intellect to run politics, yet they are not smart enough to realize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And thus, one of the greatest du'as that we can make is the du'a taught to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Fatiha, Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, grant us guidance of the straight path. And this was a du'a that Ibrahim alayhi salam, in spite of recognizing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, used to continuously make. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant all of us guidance. Ali, any questions?
No, I'm good, alhamdulillah.
Good, alhamdulillah. All right, inshallah. All right, so we'll end off the meeting now, inshallah. Make dua for us, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.